Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Switch 2 Edition, guys. And they decided at the very last second of today to drop last overview trailer, probably the last look we're gonna get at this game before it launches 1 week from today at the time of this recording, probably less than a week at the time of you watching. I was about to get a shower, I was really tired, I've got a headache, but you know what? I'm grinding out for you guys because watching that trailer, guys, I almost cried. I can't believe it. I almost started crying. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 means so much to me. It means so much to me. I played that game in a time in which gaming was in a very weird spot in my life. And today I want to talk a little bit more about the game itself, why you should be interested, why you should buy it if you are considering it, and tell you a little bit of story about myself and my life with this game. So, story time incoming, let's start there. I want to say it was like 2023 that I decided I wanted to go through all of the Xenoblade Chronicles games. In 2017, we actually have to go back even further to get my Xenoblade knowledge intact and to give you enough context to understand why I love the series so much. In 2017, I did not play these games, but I did buy a Nintendo Switch. In my video, I think, talking about what the Switch 2 Direct could be like the day before, or I think it was the day before, there was a day before something. I'll put it on the top corner here. You can go watch that video if you want to hear more of that story. But basically what happened was I got a Nintendo Switch because huge Nintendo fan, right? But I was still very young at the time. In 2017, I was probably around 10, 11 years old. And so I got my Nintendo Switch. I got no games with it. I got Breath of the Wild, technically. But I went home, my mother was super overbearing and she didn't understand anything about games and was super overprotective. So she didn't understand what Zelda was. She'd never heard of what Zelda was. In our house, we were very strict about what we played and what we watched, had to be approved by my mom. And she's not at all like this anymore. But the way it was then was that. And so Breath of the Wild was new. And she was willing to let me take a shot on it, but she didn't want me to see anything like weird or wrong or bad or whatever. So it took months of convincing, and then I got the game, and I couldn't get off the Great Plateau. I was a stupid 10-year-old. I didn't know what I was doing, and I got frustrated, and she was just like, well, if you can't even do it, let's just give it back, right? I don't even want to take a risk. So she convinced me. I was like, you know what? You're right. And there was a whole lot of backstory about that game. I ended up getting it months later. Again, I rebought it in like July of that year, replayed it. The rest is history, my favorite game of all time. But I didn't have a game for the Nintendo Switch for like a month until Mario Kart came out in April, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Then, of course, throughout the year, I ended up getting Splatoon 2 for Christmas that year. I didn't get it during the summer, even though I desperately wanted it. I got it for Christmas. I got Super Mario Odyssey that year and ARMS as well. Those were like the big titles that made up my year for the Nintendo Switch, and I loved each and every one of them. But during that 2018 time period, after Splatoon 2 hype had died down for me, which it didn't die down for a long time, I played it for years, but after I decided I was willing to at least think about other games, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was a game around that holiday time period that I started to wonder, what is this? I'm interested in this. So of course, if my mom didn't want me to buy Zelda because she didn't know what was going to be in it and she was worried about it, does anyone think that she would have let me got a Xenoblade Chronicles game, a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 game that has characters that look like this and like this and like this? Yeah, no, let's get that off the screen. I don't like that either, personally. I don't like those designs. I feel like they're very objectifying. I'm not a fan of it, and that unfortunately is a big part of this game's history and is why it sold so many copies. But nonetheless, the story and everything about this game is why I love it so much. So if we're gonna go back to that 2017 time period, I need to tell you something else. I may not have been allowed to have this game. I may not have even thought it possible that I would get it, so I never brought it up, but my neighbor did. My neighbor, I would play with my neighbor all the time. He was a couple years younger than me at the time. We would go out and we played basketball and all that stuff, but we both got Switches around the same time. And of course we were friends, and I convinced him to get Splatoon, so we played Splatoon together. He didn't rock with Splatoon and he was terrible at it, but we were friends, and so I would see him playing his Switch and I was like, wait a minute, what is this game that he's playing? Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in like 2018. I was like, what is that? So I look into it. I told you guys I wanted it, but then guess what happened next? I knew I couldn't get it. I wasn't even gonna try. I wasn't gonna try to secretly buy it or anything like that. I just knew I was interested in the story because from everything that I had seen, I had always heard in all these different reviews that I read, because that's all I could do was read reviews. I read so many reviews and it was like, this game's story is something that you will never forget. And I was like, what in the world? At that time point, I really didn't understand that stories could be so powerful in video games. All I'd really played up to that point was Mario Kart and Mario games and like Wii Sports. I was a very sheltered gaming child. So even the idea of a story being amazing to begin with was honestly a little bit foreign for me, particularly with video games. So the idea that video games could not only be so amazing and have such massive worlds, they could tell stories that would impact you in ways that you've never experienced before. And that hooked me, the idea of it alone. So what else am I gonna do? I can't get this game. I'm not gonna talk to my next door neighbor about this game. I am going to watch all the cutscenes in a row by myself on my phone. So that year, right, I'm supposed to be doing school. Like I'm in, early middle school at that point maybe? I am supposed to be doing math homework. I'm supposed to be doing algebra. I'm supposed to be figuring out my life, and I am not. The last thing I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing. So Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Not only does it have a story, but I'm shocked to find that this game has hour-long cutscenes. Like cutscenes that are so long you wouldn't even believe. I'd never experienced or seen anything like that up to this point. Everything thus far for games has been gameplay. I didn't know that these cutscenes could last that long. I didn't even really fully understand that voice acting in the same way that like live action shows could be in games in this form. It blew my mind. So when everybody else bought Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and it sold as many copies as it did, and it's the best-selling Xenoblade game because it was in the first year of the Switch and people were interested in the huge world and interested in seeing what was up with this game, when everyone else was buying it and then finding out that the first couple chapters did not get executed well gameplay-wise, I didn't play it. I didn't know that. I watched all the cutscenes instead. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, all of the crazy cutscenes that ended up happening, and some really cool fake outs, some amazing plot devices that honestly could be seen as cheesy to some, but for me are so nostalgic and blew my ever-loving mind. I'd never seen anything like these cutscenes. I'd never experienced anything like this story, and it was pulling at my heartstrings so many times. And I drug this out because I didn't have a lot of time to myself, much less a lot of time that I could get on my phone without being seen. Even though really, there was nothing wrong with this game. The only thing bad about this game was the designs, which I'm not a fan of, sure, but still. In my mind, I was doing like, I was just really being a rebel, and I needed to hide. So if this game has like several chapters, over 10 chapters, right? And all of them have hour-long cutscenes, like hours upon hours of cutscene in between gameplay. How long do you think it took me to end up watching this whole thing in its entirety in between times when I'm supposed to be studying, supposed to be doing schoolwork, supposed to be doing anything else? Dog, it took me like 2 months to even get close to finishing this. And by the time I finished it, I was never the same. Oh, that ending, I was crying so hard, sobbing, just like, what happened? Why would you do this? What in the world? It reached a part of me I didn't know existed. It made me feel things I didn't know I could feel. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 came at such a pivotal time in my life. So that was 2018, right? And it was probably halfway, if not all the way through 2018, that I get to the end of those cutscenes, and I am totally satisfied in that. I wasn't even thinking about buying the game or playing it at some point. I was just like, yeah, I'm never going to be able to get this anyways, so let me just watch cutscenes, and I was satisfied. I experienced the game. Well, fast forward several years at this point. It's 2023. I have much more freedom now. And my parents, my mom especially, is not nearly as strict as she was. She starts to realize the only way for anyone to grow is to make mistakes and to not be sheltered and to trust her children. So that ended up being a much less big of a problem as it was prior. So I decided Xenoblade Chronicles was a series I wanted to give a try because Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition had recently dropped on the Nintendo Switch. And of course, with my Xenoblade Chronicles 2 love and all of those cutscenes that I watched and just everything that my heart just was so full of with Xenoblade 2, I wanted to know more about the series, and I thought, you know what? I've got way more games under my belt at this point. I am so much more of a veteran in gaming and all these different genres, but JRPGs was one I had never dipped my toes in before. So Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, I end up buying that game, I want to say around late 2022 or early 2023. I want to say early 2023. That was also around the time that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 had been revealed, and Honestly, it was supposed to come out later than it did, but they pushed that release up, and Splatoon 3 was pushed back. That was such a big deal at the time, and I thought Xenoblade 3 looked really good too. So I was like, you know what, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna play all of these games in a row. So I buy Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. That game blew my socks off. It was so much fun. I loved the gameplay. The story was just as gripping as the second one. Probably not as much because the second one, obviously, from what I told you, came at such a pivotal time. It will never, nothing I don't think will ever top those peaks. But Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, it was an amazing game in its own right. The DLC for that game, Future Redeemed, was very underwhelming. I think most people would agree it's the worst piece of Xenoblade content, but it's still fun. And of course, going back to see Melia more and Shulk more after that story ends, it's just very heartwarming. It's the last piece of media we'll probably get with those characters in this series, unless we see like big remakes coming in the future. So I played Xenoblade 1, and then I had to play Xenoblade Chronicles 2. All of the gameplay woes and issues and problems that everyone had with the first few chapters, the lack of tutorials telling us what to do, the lack of explanation, the lack of pure understanding, and all of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 didn't affect me. Because not only, I left a little piece of information out, not only did I watch all of the trailers and all of the cutscenes and everything about this game, I also watched several YouTube videos talking about how to play the game, how to make it a better experience for yourself, and most importantly, how the attack system, how the battle system actually works. So by the time I got to the game, it was already rooted in my memory what to do, how to do it, and the story, it had been that many years, so 23 to 18, it had been about 5 years since I'd fully experienced that story. So yes, I knew all the story beats, I knew most big moments, but I couldn't remember everything in between. And of course, playing it is a whole different experience because you're just even more invested in this world and in these characters when you're going through the world itself. So I loved the gameplay, I loved everything about it because when it clicks with you, it really clicks, guys. It just clicks. And boy, did it click with me. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is so special. It is an amazing game. Then I ended up playing Xenoblade 3, loved that game as well. It is up there. All three of them are masterpiece games. I need to play all three of them again now that they've gotten Switch 2 editions. But watching the Switch 2 edition trailer, guys, it's fixing everything. It's fixing all the problems I had with the original. First of all, it's the graphics, and we're kind of pivoting now. Story time's a little bit over. Here we are talking about why you should potentially get this game, and if you already bought the original, why you should maybe upgrade. First off, everybody knows the graphics were the worst part of this game from the Nintendo Switch. That version, it was abysmal in some areas, particularly in handheld mode. It was some of the worst content you would ever see in terms of graphical fidelity. I mean, it's just ugly. It was pure ugly. That is totally fixed here. It is totally fixed. In docked mode, you're going to be getting 4K output and 60 FPS, and in handheld mode, you'll be getting full HD 60 FPS, and I would assume with a game this old and all these other crazy stuff like Cyberpunk 2077, like if all of these crazy games can run, this game should be able to run at a solid locked 60 FPS and 4K in dock. So gone are the days of you having to fill in the cracks, having to look at the horrible graphics and glitches and everything on the screen and just being like, ooh, let me ignore that to move on. It's gone. It is all gone. It's fixed for you. It is as beautiful as ever. And of course the characters, right? The characters and the cutscenes. Most important for me, right? If there's someone out there who is experiencing the same thing I am, watching the Switch 2 version of these cutscenes in pure 4K, oh my goodness, I would have killed to do that. And here, just even watching this trailer now, it's so smooth. It is smooth as butter. It is just jaw-droppingly beautiful. You get some really cool cosmetics. You get new outfits for Pyra and Mithra. Look way better, way less objectifying. Then all of the comments here are talking about a character from Xenosaga, the games that came before Xenoblade Chronicles. I'm not familiar with those games, but they're all saying that it is adding Momo, a character named Momo. I don't know anything about that, but that is really cool for those of you who maybe didn't know that was happening with this edition. They are adding Momo from Xenosaga into Xenoblade Chronicles 2, so there you go. They're adding in a new mode called the Merc Assault, where you can go and take all of the different blades that you have assembled together, and you can use them in combat. It looks to be almost like a timed gameplay thing where you can kind of go through very arcadey style, not something that is really going to be pertinent to the original game or story, but I wonder if this is going to be a much easier way for you to help upgrade all of these blades and just get everyone up to snuff, because that can be a very big problem here with a lot of different blades and stuff in Xenoblade 2 and all of these JRPG games to begin with. It's just very problematic when you're going through the entire game with a few of them and they all get upgraded. But if you switch to another one to upgrade those, you're not going to have nearly enough XP to be able to defeat all of the enemies in front of you if you had just kept with the same people from the very start and just maxed them out. So not only does it look clear, not only does it look clean, not only is everything absolutely perfect with this Switch 2 edition, but on top of it, they're adding in new content to give especially fans of the series even more reasons to come back, even more reasons to upgrade. And if you're brand new to the series, this is the perfect entry point, particularly with Xenoblade Genesis coming up next year. If you want to go through all 3 games, this would be the perfect opportunity to jump. X1 is already out, the definitive edition, the Switch 2 edition for that. We're getting this one next week, July 30th, and then 3 is coming out in December. So you have plenty of time in between now and then to go through these and just spend as much time in them as you want. The physical edition is coming out October 1st, so if you're going physical for that, I probably won't. I already have the physical for the Switch 1 version, so if I'm going to do this, I already bought the upgrade pack. I'm just going to go with that. It makes the most sense. But if you're going in brand new, that would be really, really cool to have a physical edition of this. I have no idea how many of those they're going to print, so consider pre-ordering that right now. But yeah, on top of all the new content, on top of the graphical fixes, which honestly makes this game 10 times better already, I think they're also, I can't know this for sure, but I think they're also definitely going to fix a little bit of that quality of life, help make the UI a little bit more understandable, give us better tutorials. I think things are just going to be much more fleshed out. It seems to me that what they're doing is going back and adding in content that is really cool to fans of the series, but also making it more accessible and making it more to what that initial vision was, because sometimes, especially in a launch year, and especially in a launch year as desperate of the Switch was, you just got to push games out as fast as possible to get people interested, and this seemed at the time like something that they really just pumped out as quickly as possible. So yeah, now is the time. Now is the time. And this is why this game is so special. It's why you should buy it right now. And it's why everything you've seen online is just totally false, because there are some weird spots, but once you push through those, and especially with this edition, you're allowed to kind of push back more of them even more. Once you get through some weird parts in the early chapters, it's nothing but pure bliss from then on out. 10 out of 10 recommend. That's why I'm so excited. I just had to share that with you. So make sure if you enjoyed today's video, you hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Make sure you also consider joining my membership program, a few bucks a month, just to help support the channel and support me financially. It really helps, and you get a couple cool perks for yourself. Well, if you're interested in the series and want more Xenoblade content, I broke down Xenoblade Genesis' trailer in full, so you can click on the left side of your screen if you want to see that, and on the right side of your screen, click that one story time I was telling you about at the very beginning of the video. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. I hope you have yourself a phenomenal day. This has been Ray's Nintendo Talk. I've been Ray, and I'll see you all in the next video.